Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you. So today's video is just gonna be a good chill, sit down, kind of just talking about stuff video. I haven't done one of these in a really long time, and honestly I kind of miss doing them. I normally would do them on my couch, but I think my Christmas tree will cause a lot of flickering in the background, and I don't think anybody really wants to see that, so I'm just doing it at my desk. But yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about something that I get asked about a lot, and that I kind of talk about on my channel here and there, and it is my experiences with having a chronic illness and also extreme weight loss. In case you don't know, I have a chronic illness called chronic fatigue syndrome, and it affects my life every single day. And I like talking about it because I feel like invisible illnesses and disabilities aren't talked about enough. And yeah, so that's what we're gonna be talking about today. But before we get into it, you know what's not super cool sometimes? Having a chronic illness. You know what's not super cool all the time? The climate crisis. So to help you figure out what you can all do to help combat the climate crisis, let's hear from today's sponsor, Ren. This video is sponsored by Ren. Ren.co is a website that makes it easy to calculate and offset your carbon footprint. By answering a few questions and about your lifestyle, you can find out your carbon footprint and how to reduce it. You can then make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint by funding carbon reduction projects. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you receive monthly updates from the projects you support. You get to see what your money is spent on, with photos and details on every tree planted, every acre reforested, and every ton of carbon offset. One of the projects I want to highlight is the Clean Cooking Fuel for Refugees project. In this project, Mandulis Energy is pioneering a way to transform waste from farming into charcoal briquettes, creating clean energy in the process. This project helps displaced persons in the Adjumani settlements of northern Uganda. The current 3 stone stoves used by residents produce smoke equivalent to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. The project has incredible long-term potential. When it scales up to the 16 planned sites, the clean burning briquettes will meet all of the cooking fuel needs of the 200,000 refugee households in Uganda, while saving over 1 million trees each year. The project works like this. Mandulis Energy purchases waste, like rice husks, wow, that's a tongue twister, ground nutshells, and maize cobs from nearby farms. The waste is put through a briquetting machine and is transformed into small cylinders that can be used as fuel. The briquettes are distributed among refugees in northern Uganda, where it is burned in efficient stoves. This project is different from other cook stove projects in that over the next 4 years, they hope to replace almost all the stone stoves in this community. That means no one will be gathering firewood, and there will be time for the forest to heal. That's the power of this project. It has the potential to reach amazing scale while providing clean energy and making clever use of waste that is normally just thrown out. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but you can start helping today by learning more at Ren.co, because Ren is a simple and effective way to make a difference in the climate crisis. So offset your carbon footprint with Ren. The first 100 people who sign up using the link in my description will get 10 extra trees planted in their name. Thank you so much to Ren for sponsoring this video, and thank you so much to you guys for interacting with my content, continuing to interact with my content, so brands like Ren want to continue working with me. Anyways, let's just get back to current Megan to continue on with the video. Okay, so like I said, for those of you that don't know, I have a chronic illness called chronic fatigue syndrome. In other countries, it is called myalgic encephalomyelitis. But of course in America, it has to have a really generic, boring name that makes it sound like something that's way easier to deal with than it actually is. I have had it for 10 years now, which is wild to think about. And it affects me every single day in some way. And for me, I'm basically some level of physically and mentally exhausted every day, more than the average person who just like doesn't get enough sleep. And how much I do or do not sleep honestly doesn't really make me feel better. And so that's one of the most frustrating things about it. And the severity of it also fluctuates from day to day, so I never really know how I'm gonna feel the next day. On the days I consider flare-ups, I don't leave my bed except to eat or go to the bathroom, and even that is really difficult. I know it's a bad flare when my joints start to feel sore, particularly my hands. I notice it in my hands a lot on flare-up days, like they just feel tired and sore. And on my last flare-up day, my girlfriend actually just like sat in bed with me and like rubbed my hands, and it felt so good and it was so sweet. And so yeah, I know it's a bad flare when my joints start to feel really tired. I've done a whole video on my experience with having this and going through the diagnosis process of finally getting diagnosed with it. I was really young, I was like 16. And yeah, so if you want to go check that out, I'll have it linked in the cards. Definitely watch it at like 1.5 speeds because I made it when I hadn't really learned how to talk for YouTube yet or edit. And yeah, so watch it at 1.5 speeds because it's really long too. One thing I mentioned a lot in that video is how through the whole diagnosis process of finally getting diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, which to get diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, you have to get everything else that could be ruled out. But throughout that whole process, I was told time and time and time again by doctors that if I just lost weight, then I would feel better. Hearing that over and over and over again from medical professionals at such a young age really didn't feel super great because this had a huge effect on my life and my schooling and everything like that. And the thought that I had potentially done it to myself by getting so big was really scary and really disheartening. And when all this started to happen, I was also coming off the heels of officially getting diagnosed and having my depression and anxiety onset and officially getting diagnosed with depression and anxiety and getting treated for that. And which was also blamed on my weight by my psychologist, which also did not feel good. So that trend continuing when it came to something that neither I or my parents or a lot of medical professionals could tell what was going on at the time really sucked, and it really took a toll mentally and physically. I make a lot of videos on this channel about the fat acceptance movement and fat activists, and how I don't agree with a lot of the messaging that comes out of that and how it negatively affected my life for so long. But one thing I will always agree with them on is that fat people are treated differently in the medical system. And it's a shitty thing, but it's just the truth. And it is extremely mentally taxing to deal with. In some ways, after going through what wound up being the year-long diagnosis process for my chronic fatigue syndrome, I almost didn't want to go on the path to lose weight because I was so afraid that I would feel so much better after I lost weight and that I would have to face the fact that I had pretty much done it to myself. But in 2018, ultimately my health had regressed in so many other ways because of my weight that I no longer could ignore it and I had to do something. And so I had weight loss surgery in 2018 and I wound up losing about 100 pounds. At that point, when I came to the conclusion that I wanted to pursue bariatric surgery, I was fully ready to approach or potentially have to work through the mental turmoil that would come with what I thought was chronic fatigue just disappearing and not having to deal with it anymore. And having to deal with the mental turmoil that I caused so much harm to myself, and I derailed my life myself. And that's a really hard thing to potentially have to deal with. But I was ready at that point because my health in other ways had deteriorated so much. So you can probably imagine my surprise when my chronic illness, in fact, did not go away. And it actually got worse in some ways after weight loss. One thing I noticed was that the normal lethargy that somebody would experience from being in a caloric deficit was exacerbated so much by my chronic illness. And the normal fatigue from starting a new workout routine or a lifting split or something was also made worse by my chronic illness. And those are both things that I still experience to this day, like almost 5 years later. Like now, if I start a new workout regimen or a split, I can almost guarantee that the effects of it in regards to my chronic illness will cause a flare-up, either whether it be like later in the day, the next week, or whatever. At some point it will knock me out for at least a day, sometimes up to a week. But regardless of how long it is pretty much guaranteed that I will not be able to leave my bed because of it. And I know I mentioned that earlier I was surprised when my chronic illness didn't go away after I lost weight, but also I was extremely relieved and validated that it didn't go away, because it was super affirming to know that what I'd been going through for so many years wasn't due to something that I could have changed a long time ago, and that it was truly just the state of my body after a weird illness that I got, and that my body just didn't stop fighting off after it had left my body. But to be honest, all this is not to say that losing weight hasn't helped my energy levels at all. I overall just feel better. I think it's just because I don't have to like lug myself around anymore. I don't feel my body being a body so much anymore as I did when I was over 300 pounds. And my body doesn't hurt all the time. Like I was getting shin splints walking across campus when I was at my heaviest, which was about 315 pounds. And so my body just doesn't hurt. I feel more inclined to try new things, that kind of stuff. Overall, I feel a lot better since losing weight. And I experienced the same bursts of energy that people do after working out and eating healthy. The difference from other people is just that the changes or activities eventually catch up with me and knock me out for sometimes, like I said, up to a whole week. So it's kind of a weird cycle that I've had to learn to balance over the years. I've come to terms with the fact that I can't really go to the gym or work out more than 3 to 4 days a week. Because my body needs rest days more than the average person does. If I'm switching my caloric intake, I expect to be very lethargic and not able to do much for about a week or two after, which I think is more like normal for people. The biggest difference I see is definitely when I increase or change my physical activity. I'm making this video because a lot of you tell me that you also have chronic illnesses or disabilities or whatever, and you also are in the process of pursuing a health journey or losing weight or whatever. And so I wanted to make this video to let you know that you are absolutely not alone in your experiences. I'm also making this video to let people know that just lose weight isn't always a viable answer for some health problem that a fat person might be having. And that is something I will stand by no matter what size I am, no matter how much weight I lose now or whatever. It's not always a one size fits all answer. And I'm a pretty open book now when it comes to my chronic illness. I used to not talk about it a lot because it was something that I was really insecure about. But I have since done a lot of internal work just with like, yes, this is what my body is. No, I'm not like gaslighting myself into thinking something's wrong with me when it's not, blah, blah, blah. So if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. That's all I have to say. So I'm just gonna cut this here. Thank you so much to Ren for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you guys for continuing to interact with my content so companies like Ren want to continue working with me. And yeah, big thanks to you guys. I just love you all so, so much, and be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, take your meds, take rest days when you need them because there's no shame in that, and I will see you in the next one. Okay, bye.